of the Amazing Ability webinar series. I am Mamata Ji, serving as a VT coordinator under Comprehensive Care Support and Treatment for Persons with Disability program at Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to today's episode where we celebrate one more unstoppable achiever, Ms. Ira Singhal. SVIM is a development organization engaged in building a new civil society in India, serving over 3 million people in Karnataka through 40 plus projects, 7 institutions, 100 plus partners across the domains of health, education, socio-economic empowerment program, and training and research. This webinar is jointly hosted by SVIM's CCST program and Vivekananda Institute for Leadership Development, WeLead. SVIM's Comprehensive Care Support and Treatment for Persons with Disability program, initiated in 2018, stands all 21 types of disability and engages with over 40,000 specially abled individuals in Mysuru and Kodagu district. WeLead's mission is to develop human and social capital for nation building by enhancing the potential of individuals and institutions across the development sectors. WeLead engages across 4 sectors: government, NGOs, corporates, and communities youths. Specially abled people face several issues including accessibility, inclusion, and the inability to lead a barrier-free life. One of the ways in which a light can be thrown on these issues is by celebrating the amazing achievements of sunset of fantastic individuals from this group who have broken through the barriers and inspired not just people from their own group, but also all of us. This webinar is an attempt to bring some of these celebrities onto a platform where they can share their journey, their grit, determination, and the fire that burns within them that has made them into role model for all of us. I will now hand it over to Mr. Ramesh Venkataraman, Director of WeLead, to introduce our exceptional achiever, Ms. Ira Singhal. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mamta. Ira Singhal is the first person with disability to top the Civil Services Examinations 2014. She has a BE and MBA degrees from 2 of the top institutions of the country and has worked prior to this as a strategy manager for Cadbury India Limited. Before her selection as an IAS officer in 2015, she was rejected thrice by the government as an IRS officer in the same exam, despite clearing it due to her disability. But she managed to break through in 2014. She is the brand ambassador for the Department of Disability, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India. She is also a brand ambassador for the Ministry of Women and Child Development, Niti Aayog, and is on the National Panel for Accessible Elections, Election Commission of India. Her innumerable awards include India Today's Woman of the Year 2015, President's Gold Medal for topping the IAS training, First Ladies of India Award by the Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India. And we will get to know Ira Singhal better during the course of this conversation. Absolute pleasure and privilege to have you as our guest, and thank you for agreeing to speak with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Like I said, this conversation will go a little back and forth. It won't be in chronological order. So,
Sure.
So in the first question I had is, one of the aspects that I've been thinking about is how you did not give up even after being rejected twice. So I was wondering, how has failure, or for that matter, rejection, shaped your outlook on life? And where did you find the inspiration and strength to keep fighting and not give up?
I think this is something that all people with disabilities will, relate to. We have unfortunately since childhood constantly been rejected for something or the other. In a lot of cases, your family rejects you. In a lot of cases, society rejects you. So rejection generally becomes the way of life. It's how the world has been treating you, and you kind of get used to it. Now, there are just 2 options in life, right? Either to keep struggling and to keep trying, or to give up. If you give up, you basically stay where you are. And for most of people without disabilities, it's not such a bad place to stay where they are. But unfortunately, for people with disabilities, the place that you start from is so bad that if you stay there, then your life really truly does not have meaning. And all that the world says about you being incapable and undesirable in a way, that becomes true. So just to get your basic dignity, to just reach that level that other people get uh, to be at without their disability, it just means you have to keep fighting. And honestly, I do think that if you've started a journey, it is on you, and it is your character which shows it the way that you finish it. So if you've started it, why give up till you can find something to change about that situation? See, most of the times I do think it's okay to give up, and you should in a lot of cases, if you cannot find something about yourself to change. If you cannot find something that either is unfair and you can change that, or you can at least try to change that, or if there is if you can find a thing that you didn't do to your best. So for example, giving this exam 3-4 times, I could always see what I was doing wrong. And it's very easy to blame the world, to blame your circumstances, to blame the situation, to blame your family, to blame your teachers, to blame the question paper, the examiner. But that doesn't help anyone. So, the way I see it is, the only person you can control and change is yourself. And if you can change something about yourself in that situation, then you must keep doing that, and you must keep trying. So that was the only reason I did that. I could always analyze and find my own faults in a way, things that I wasn't doing well, and things that I could change and improve about myself and my performance. And I think that's the only reason I could keep giving this exam, because I didn't feel helpless. So you start feeling helpless if you can't find something to change about that situation to make it better, right? And I am somebody who's trained myself to never feel helpless. And that again comes from being a person with disability. And in your childhood, almost all of us have felt helpless at some point. So that was a big part of it, and that's how I could keep doing this.
So two very interesting points that I can quickly relate to. One is that you said change happens within, and you cannot locate it without. And and I think that's an important point that people need to take with them. And the point about was there any person or any event that just as a follow through that kept the fire burning, kept you inspired, or it was just you and your determination to break through?
No, I also come from a family where giving up is not allowed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So my parents since childhood have basically never allowed give up to be an option in my life. So somehow that got ingrained. And like I said, right, I was clearing the exams. And I knew that I could do better. And I've always been trained by my parents as well that, if someone else has done it, then there is something that you are not doing perfectly. So you can't blame the world, and, you can't blame everybody else for having done it. So it's something that you're not doing well. So, start looking at your own performance and looking at your own self and your own faults. And that's how you kind of move forward. So these are things that I was lucky enough to have learned in childhood, which kind of stayed with me. And that's how I stuck around. But no, there wasn't any specific individual. I think in this particular case, even my parents would have been okay had I decided to, not give it again, because I did have a corporate career.
Right.
That's also one thing. I did not make the mistake which most people do of not having any backup plan and then doing this. See, when you take a big risk in life, you kind of need to make sure that your risk will not bring you to a lower level than where you started from. So I made sure of that. So I knew that no matter what, I can go back to my corporate job. And so I think that was a big support in a way, that that you have something to fall back on. You're not completely going to go back to zero. So that also made a difference. So it's also what I'm trying to say is it's also about the choices and the circumstances you've made for yourself, which keep you on that track. Because, for example, if you don't have anything and you're, that old and you don't have a job, you don't have any guarantee of a job, or you don't have any other skills, and you've just been giving that exam for that many years, then obviously you start panicking a lot faster, and you start panicking and wanting to get out. And it's even tougher to start analyzing the situation properly. So I think that decision of mine to have a backup plan and to make those choices very carefully and very safely is I think what also kept was helped in that circumstance.
That's another interesting point to make, because there is also the school of thought, several people will speak about the need to burn your bridges, therefore, for you to be able to get what you want. But I think you make a very important point that is rooted in the practicality of how life is, that you need to have a backup plan, and,
Yes.
and not just burn your bridges and go forward without
I'll be very
fall
honest.
back. Yeah.
I'm a realist. I'm not an idealist, and I am an optimist, but I'm a realist. I'm an extreme optimist, and I believe everything can happen and we can change the world, but I'm not an idealist. I don't think everything is going to be okay just because I want it to be. It's your decisions and it's the choices that you make. In an exam where 1 million people, that's 10 lakh people who give it every year, just 1,000 will get in. It's a very bad odd to play your life on. And especially for 4, 5, 6 years, that's just terrible decision making.
Absolutely. You spoke about your corporate job. So I'm just coming to that. And you briefly touched upon the shift that you made. Strategy is an interesting field to be in. And Cadbury is about spreading joy, chocolates and all of that. So why the shift to the IAS? And do you think that there is anything that you would do differently now compared to what you did then?
Absolutely not, actually. I am pretty happy with the choices that I made. And like I said, right, I've always been somebody who makes very careful choices. I make big enough choices, but I make them very carefully. And I don't make choices about being a dreamer and deciding that I want and I think I can do it. I make sure I know that I can do it. So I test myself enough to know that this is my performance level. This is what I'm really good at. And that's when I make those choices and those decisions. So what happened was that at Cadbury, I was working 20-hour days at a point. And while the job was amazing and I was loving it and I was on a fast track career trajectory. But what happened is that I started realizing that after 20 hours of working really hard, the only thing I have to show is a lot of people making a lot of money. I didn't really make a difference to the world. I didn't really, there's nobody who will say that because I worked 20-hour days, their life is better. And that's something that I kind of realized that I needed my day to have done. I needed my day to have meant something. I needed my day to have made a difference. And that's when I decided to quit and come back, because I wanted my job to have an impact and, change lives for the better, to, put smiles on faces in a different way. So, and that's how I decided to get into the civil services.
That's an interesting point. There are a lot of school children also who have joined in today. A lot of young children who have joined in, and you spoke about your day having to mean something to you, and also that it. So could you just elaborate on that a bit? I think that would help a lot of the listeners here when you say that you want people talk about contributing, doing something of value, but they don't actually see it playing out. So in real terms, so how is that? So how do you? Could you unpack it a little for us?
So basically what I mean is that if I'm working so hard, I wanted that I made someone's life better, that my day after, I'd done all that I was doing, there was any family or any person who said that because of me, their career, their future is now going to be brighter. That's just about it. See, there are a lot of ways that you can do that. You can I was already giving a part of my salary to NGOs who were working in children's sector and specific sectors. But I didn't feel like that was enough. I didn't feel, and I kind of knew that I could do a lot more. And, so that's how I got in. But what happens is usually that we all think we want to contribute, but we don't know where to start from. And so this is something that I tell people, find something small just around you. Find a small thing. All revolutions start from a small spark. So find something small around you. We all start looking at the biggest change we can make. And we all start looking of big things and, dreaming of big things. But really, to get to that point of being big, you need to have built something from small things. It's a step-by-step journey. It's not one day you will wake up and you will suddenly be changing the world. It's many years of little things that you will have to do to get to that point. And that's something that people need to understand. And so for me, I had been doing a lot of things, but I felt like I needed to do more, and I needed, to really, I think I also had a lot of practical solutions to a lot of problems that I saw around me. And I thought that getting into the government was the best way to implement those solutions. And I'm glad that I got that opportunity. Many people don't, but I've been very, very lucky, and I'm getting that opportunity. So that's also something.
So could we step back a little and trace your childhood days and how all of this played out, and how was it? I've also read about how you topped most of the. I mean, you've been a topper all the way in most in most. So if you could briefly trace that and how all of that built into because there is also a question in the chat, you might take it up along with this, which says any tips for UPSC preparation. I think because this is also titled as inspiration for that. So if you could.
For tips, I would suggest that please check my blog. You will literally, it's an idiot's guide to civil services. So you will find everything there. And, it's not, and whoever has asked this question, Beta, you are thinking of UPSC as this very small thing, and someone will give you a couple of tips and you can suddenly clear it. It's not that way. It's basically becoming an encyclopedia about the world in yourself and having analytical skills. So nobody can give you tips like this and you will suddenly clear it. So it's a 5,000 arena thing. So you need to be more specific with your questions in terms of what are you having problems with. Secondly, please check my blog. That should, if you're not able to even have questions at this point, I'm assuming you've not started anything. So then check my blog and you'll get your answers there. And trust me, you will, because literally nobody till date of almost 2-3 lakh people that I've guided to that place have come back and said that they didn't find an answer. So you will.
Yeah,
right.
We will share the
yeah.
Sorry, you were saying something.
I'm sorry. We were talking about childhood, right?
Yeah, I said,
Childhood.
yeah. Your childhood days, perhaps we could trace that a little bit.
Well, my childhood was quite a turbulent childhood, but more of family issues and those things. But I wasn't always a topper because I didn't care enough to top. It's that to become a topper, you kind of have to care about marks a little. So I wasn't someone who ever did, and I still don't. I can't be that competitive, and because most toppers, they kind of have that one purpose in life. For me, it was important to do all those other things, and that's how my parents also. Oh, somebody wants me to speak in Kannada. I am so sorry. I do not know Kannada.
I might tell them, what we will also do is, we will share a kind of a translated transcript of this after this conversation is done. So.
Okay. So I was somebody who was into a lot of other things. So I was big time into dancing. I did a lot of theater. I used to read a lot. So I had all these other activities that I was a part of. So studies was important, obviously, because, by the way, this is an advice to all children with any kind of disability. If you're not good at, you will have to find something that you're good at. And since most of us are never going to be good enough at physical activities, we will have to make sure we're good enough at mental activities, because you have to show that you're equal to the world in something. If you're not in one arena, then it has to be in the other, no matter what your arena you choose to be. There are people who are good at physical things, despite being people with disabilities. So go ahead, be that. But for me, it became my studies, and that kind of gave me that grounding and that confidence to pursue other things as well. So that was mainly, about the childhood thing. So I was always good at studies, but I didn't really study. In fact, my parents always thought that I would fail out of school because of how little they saw me studying. But no, that didn't happen. I always studied just enough to sail through. That's not a good advice, and I'm not telling any of you to do that. Please don't. But that's something that I unfortunately was doing.
So one of the things that I read about what you did post your IAS thing is about the rescuing about 340 children from forced child labor and returning them to their families. I think those are areas that are of particular interest to you, if I'm not wrong. So could you tell us more about how this came about and the challenges you faced in solving that, as well as the challenges that you foresee, particularly in these areas that we seem to be still grappling with?
Actually, to be honest, it's mainly about being receptive to the information that comes to you as an officer. So there was an NGO, and in fact, we all know the NGO, Bachpan Bachao Andolan. They've won a Nobel Prize. So in my area, they were quite active, and they'd been trying to speak to officers before me as well, but nobody took them seriously. So they came to meet me also when I joined, and I understood, from the problem from them. And I'll be very honest, they were so good at it that they helped me plan the whole thing. Because I was fresh out of training, I didn't really know anything about this. I mean, you read it, but when you read it and when you actually do it, there's always a lot of difference. And when it comes to these kind of sensitive matters, there are a lot of rules and laws that have been passed over the years that you may not be aware of. So the good thing was that they kind of knew the whole procedure, and they helped me plan the whole thing. But the biggest challenge in India is that we're not able to give our children hope through education. And if we can give our children hope through education, then we won't have that many children in child labor and in child abuse and those kind of situations. It's mainly because we're not able to show to our families that education will truly change your lives. It will make things better for you. And there are countries in the world where it's 100% education, right? Everybody goes to school, but unfortunately in our country, we've still not reached that level. We've still not gotten to a point where we can show every child that education is valuable and it's better for you to be in school. It wasn't actually forced child labor, actually, because it's Delhi. That would really not be happening. But it was hazardous child labor. So kids were working in, see, the problem with children is children don't really know what's good for them or what's bad for them. So if as adults you tell them that you're supposed to do this and this is what you'll get paid for, that's what they start doing. It's very easy to condition children. So all of these kids were working in these really, really hazardous places simply because they didn't know any better, and they were getting paid very badly and like a very minimal wage. It wasn't even minimum wage, actually. It was much lower than that. So that was the situation that we were rescuing them from, that those hazardous conditions along with getting paid minimally. So it was quite sad to see that happening. And these were not really Delhi residents, as in the children were not Delhi residents. In most cases, they had been brought to Delhi by some broker who promised them jobs, and so in some cases promised their families jobs. So, the elder brother would come and then this younger would come along with him, or the parents would come and the parents would put their small child to work as well. So these were those kind of situations most of the time. And that's how they were little children who were doing these things. So it was quite a sad situation in that respect. In long term, I do see this as a problem, because continuing as a problem, because we've still not managed to make our education system be that place where kids find solace and kids find a future and kids find hope. But I am very, very hopeful with the new education policy. I'm actually looking at that as one of those steps which will make that big impact change. And if that goes well, then we will. And which is the book, UPSC, ma'am? Oh my God.
No, I just answered them. I just shared,
Yeah, my blog.
yeah, the link to the blog. It's called
And
Preparing for the UPSC. I think that's the title of the
and
blog as well. So
yeah.
I think
Also, if you're thinking of one book for UPSC, you are very far away. There are 9 subjects, and almost for my optional subject, I studied 50 books for one subject. So if you're looking at one book,
I think
it's almost 100 books. So like I said, yeah, it's not one book.
I think the chat box is burning up with tips and questions and
Yeah.
options. And so just as a message, I've shared the link to the blog, and if people are interested, they can write in. We will share the link as well. If you go to the blog, you'll see a lot of material there that will help you prepare for the UPSC, because the title of the blog itself is called Preparing for the UPSC. So so you might want to check that blog out. It's on blogspot.com, and the link is in the chat box. The other question I wanted is, we speak of inclusion and inclusive policies, and sometimes I have a diametrically opposite kind of view on this. Sometimes inclusion itself, I've felt in my conversations with many people, is that it can become a little overbearing, and in a sense start to resemble exclusion. When you start treating people very specially, do you feel that sometimes you overdo the inclusion bit? And if yes, how do we strike the balance? Any thought on those lines?
So I'll give you a small example. What mostly people are doing is to be inclusive. They're including people with disabilities, despite the fact that that person may not deserve to be there. And what happens is, if you give me something out of charity or pity, you are basically still continuing to say that I am lesser than you because you had to give me charity. And that's the problem which you're completely talking about, that it is about exclusion in that respect, because that person becomes that token person for us to showcase. But the easiest way to do this is if we have inclusive schools. That's one place where I think that charity also does not go wrong. If you have, and if children of all types and all castes and colors and abilities grow up together, they stop seeing each other as different. If like people ask, did your childhood classmates ever find a difference with you and ever were mean to you, or bullied you, or thought you were was difficult being a person, child with disability in your school? The point is, because I grew up with all of them, they never saw me as different. If you grow up with people, you kind of become one of them. It's just that. So if there is a kid in a wheelchair in school from nursery or from first itself, kids will grow up with that person and will get used to that person, and will be a lot more sensitive to, will basically not treat people with disabilities as different when they grow up, or if they have a child with visual disability from childhood. So it's that exclusion bit will go away when we all from schooling itself get used to each other. What has been happening till now is that we've got people with disabilities in these special separate boxes, and then we suddenly are thrown out in a way in the society at the stage where we start working. And by then people have formed their ideas. By then people have seen a lot of things and realized what is their normal, and then you become abnormal. Then you become that special person that they need to make adjustments for, or treat you with kid gloves, and kind of build the narrative around you as being nice to you, because it makes them feel better about themselves if they can show that they are being nice to you. So and that what that would also do is this thing that children with disabilities grow up with, that they expect the world to be extra nice to them and extra charitable to them, but they don't see that it is actually pity and charity which is making people be nice to you. I remember this when I was giving a lecture at IIM Ahmedabad, and there was this one student who had become disabled because of an accident. He said that my biggest sadness today is that people don't argue with me, people don't fight back with me, people don't just correct me if I'm wrong, because they feel so bad for me that they kind of keep elevating me and keep being nice to me. And it's horrible, because he can see that difference, that they are being nice to you because they think you are lesser than them, so there's no point fighting with you. So I think that if you do that, if you grow up with kids with disabilities since childhood, you stop seeing them as different, you stop seeing them as people who need your pity and charity, and that's the only way we will truly be inclusive. And this whole conversation of suddenly being inclusive at corporate level and finding people with disabilities and putting them in your teams just to show how great you are is a problem. But you know what, I do think it's a good step, because what has happened till now is that a lot of corporate sector was not willing to take on people with disabilities. For example, if there are two people with completely similar skill sets, the corporate sector was always going with the person who wasn't a person with disability. So with this inclusion whole theme and inclusion mission, at least even that token person is getting to enter. So next time what they will do is they will try to find a person who might be a token person with disability, but at least that person will be a person who can actually contribute to the company, because it's not for long that companies will carry charity and pity within their own staff, right? So it might have started from that, but it will lead to HRs finally be willing to look at people with disabilities in the same lens that they were doing for people without disabilities. So I think in the longer run, it will be beneficial.
So if I have to understand you correctly, what you're saying is that we must not lower the criteria just because somebody is disabled, but
Yes.
rather use the same yardstick that you would use, and not reduce the and keep meritocracy as the yardstick. Continue to use it, and then and it's only then that you will feel that these that you're not being treated. That the policy of inclusiveness itself is exclusive in its in how it plays out. Did you face that at all at your corporate?
No, I didn't. I wasn't. I managed to get my corporate jobs easily now, or not easily enough, but at least with everybody else who wasn't a person with disability. So no, I didn't have that. But that's not true for all the people in my batches in engineering, at least, who were people with disabilities. See, there's another added problem, right? If you're a person with disability, you basically have very little self-confidence. And if you have very little self-confidence, that shows in your interview. So a person without disability is a little more confident than you are. So on top of the fact that you have a disability and you already look disadvantaged, your own inner non-belief in yourself also comes through and adds on to that. So that kind of makes the problem much worse. And that's how people with disabilities kind of end up getting rejected a lot more, because you've kind of added on to that unfortunate problem. So that happens very often, because you go in believing they will not like you, so they obviously end up not liking you. So if you're a person with disability who is confident in your abilities, and see, that's the point, right? We need to change the conversation about people with disabilities from their disability to their ability. So we need to look at ourselves as what are my abilities, and stop thinking about what is your disability constantly. And that's how it was for me. Since childhood, I was very lucky that I was made to focus only on my abilities and not as not at my disability. So my family wasn't constantly sitting and telling me, "Oh my God, poor you, you have this." It was more about, you have this, and we have to work at making sure that it doesn't affect your life, and you have to get a life.
I think we can't get away from this question. I think it keeps popping up. So yeah, so a couple of questions, I'll roll them into one. One is, I think people want to know if you have any tips at all for making career choices. One.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah,
let's discuss that.
Yeah.
And what is the other one?
And the other one, I think I've been getting it through private chat, is what is a typical day in an IAS officer's life?
Okay.
So you might want
can I just answer a couple of questions?
Sure.
These 2-3 people who are still asking about my optional and on, beta, please at least listen to the session that is going on. I think it has been explained to you 2-3 times while you were still typing that question, that you can go to the blog. It's very rude that you're not listening to the speakers and you're asking that same question which they are answering. So if you're going to be people who do behave like this, you are definitely not clearing civil services. You don't have a capacity to listen. So listen, he was literally, Ramesh, he was at that moment telling you what to do, and you were still typing that question. So pretty bad behavior, and you shouldn't. Coming for your tips, we've already done that. Well, sorry, what was your question?
Yeah, and I think the couple of questions that came up is, if you have anything specific to share with regard to career choices. Career choices.
And
how does a typical day play out in an IAS officer's life?
Okay, I'll do the second question first.
Yeah.
I wish there was a typical day. Till date in my life, I have never repeated my day again. Every single day is a new challenge, is a new thing to solve, is a new issue to work on. And we never kind of get back to doing what we left because there's always so much to do. And there is no typical day. That's the whole typical. So your typical day is, there is no typical day. Every day will start differently. Every day will have different problems. Some days you may not even get to be in office the whole day. You could have meetings, you could have visits, you could, it's just, that's the whole point, that there is no typical day. You don't go to office and you sit down on your seat and you start doing something and you come back at 6 o'clock. No, that doesn't happen. Most days you would be working well into the night, because remember, with the cell phone, most of our work is actually on the phone as well. So, you may be reaching office at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, depending on what your state timing is. But you start working the minute you get up, because the first thing you do in the morning is check your messages, respond back to everybody. And then at night as well, you constantly check your messages till you're sleeping. So there is no typical day. About career counseling. Can actually the person who has asked you that ask me that, and let's discuss it? Is that okay?
It's come up quite a lot. I think quite a few people who put it up in the chat here. There's not one person who's asked that.
Okay, no, because it would be easier to.
I think it says your tips for students to choose from their career in general. It says, and then a lot of questions that we've already addressed in terms of IAS preparation and all of that. We asked them to go to the blog, and quite a few who says, how do I start preparing during graduation? How do I make a career choice? How do you think I should? How do I think about it? Those kind of questions.
Okay. So I'm just going to take a general thing. I do not think you should start preparing in graduation. I think you should start preparing once you're sure of what your alternate career is going to be. So there are two. So I'm going to give you the statistics if we are just looking at UPSC and we're not looking at other careers. But if you want to speak about other careers, please message, because I would love to help you out with that. So UPSC has these statistics. There are around 10 lakh people who give it every year. Out of that 10 lakh, there will be 1,000 that get selected. Out of those 1,000, there are around 700 people who will have been selected in a previous attempt. So it's just 300 new people. And out of the 10 lakh that were giving the exam, there are going to be 4,000 people who got selected in a previous attempt and are trying to better themselves, right? So roughly it's 9,96,000, out of which only 300 people will be selected. And this is not in 3D IAS. This is any service at all. My batch has 70% engineers, 20 to 25% doctors, MBBS and MD, 4 to 5% of non-engineering MBAs. Everybody else I considered in engineering MBAs, in engineering category as well. 2-3% CAs or scientists, like actual scientists with PhDs and who were doing DRDO research or Indian School of Science research and all of those kind of people. And then there will be 2-3 people in total, or 3-4 people who are 2-3 people actually who are plain graduates, right? So if you are just a plain graduate, that's terrible odds to place your life on. That's just horrible odds to place your life on, right? So I do not recommend it. Again, if you're an engineer or a person with a professional degree, make sure that you will have a professional career, which means work for a couple of years and then give civil services. So that, because in India, if you just have a degree, you will not get a job if there is a gap between your degree and when you're trying to find a job. So if you're a person who has a degree and you can get a job of that degree, I suggest get that job, work for a couple of years, and then start preparing for civil services. What that does is, in fact, working has multiple benefits when you're working for, when you're preparing for civil services. It gives you a lot of confidence in your abilities. Okay, and you become realistic about how talented you are. Because, you know, the corporate world is where you really find out who you are. Secondly, it makes you, helps you write better answers, because when you're writing those answers, you will be a lot more practical. You know, you will bring in that experience of having worked with you. Thirdly, you always make mistakes in your first job. Let those mistakes be at a platform where it will not harm someone else's life and your own life in the long run. So if you're in civil services and you're making those first time mistakes, the impact can be massive. But if you're in a corporate career and you make those mistakes, the impact will be much lesser. So that's another way it helps. Fourthly, if you don't get into civil services and you worked for a couple of years, you at least have that work ex to get you a job when you come back from civil services. And trust me, I know more people who don't clear every year than who do. Yeah. Despite the fact that I'm in the service, so I do get to meet all those people who do clear, right? So I do still know more people who don't clear. And they will always be, right? It's just 300 people out of 9,96,000. If you're placing your odds on something like that and you haven't made a good enough plan for yourself, then should you be allowed to make a plan for the country? Because if you can't plan for yourself, how will you plan for the rest of the country, right? That's what this job is about. If you're not someone who makes good decisions in your personal life, you will never make them in your job when they affect someone else's life. So that's my career advice tip when it comes to civil services. If it's something else, please let's talk.
I think it also was about other career choices in general. Yeah. Also, yeah. If you could add a few points.
Okay. So there are. In India, the problem is we always pick our careers basis what the neighbor has been good at. You know, if someone else has done something well, we decide we should also do that same thing. We may not have the talent for it, the interest in that, or experience in that field, but because someone else has been successful, so we will also do that. And that's the biggest problem. So first thing that you need to do is figure out if you are meant for that career that you're thinking about. Think about what you truly enjoy doing, because work shouldn't be something that you get up every morning and feel like, oh my God, I need to go again. So think about what you really like doing and can you make that into a career? So for example, I get these questions a lot. I like talking to people. Well, can you go in therapy then? Can you become a counselor if you like talking to people? or I like playing games online. Do you, in that case, want to become a gamer, professional, game designer? Would you be interested in that? Because you get to, play games online and make whatever games you like playing, right? And so, whatever you like doing. Some people are like, I like traveling. So, well, can you be a travel reporter, or can you be, a travel blogger, or, write articles for travel magazines? So, it's just thinking about what you truly enjoy doing, and then seeing where that can lead you as a career. Secondly, what are you good at? What skills do you have that make you good at something? But I do think your interest is the primary thing, because I'm very good at a lot of things, but I don't have any interest in them, so I will never be very good at my job. Because you need to be able to enjoy your job. So if you don't enjoy your job, you will never be doing well in it. So second thing that you do is, if you are interested, can't figure out of all your things that you like doing, which one should you pick? Then pick the one that you actually are talented in. So what is your expertise? What are your skills? And how do you match them with your interest and create a career for yourself? Unless you have a specific situation that you want to make me answer and help you sort out, I think that's the best I can do.
No, I think that this is fantastic advice. I think, and if I understood you right, well, you said you need to do what you love rather than try to start loving what you are stuck with.
Yeah, and most of the time we don't even think about liking our jobs.
Right.
We just think about, this will give me money to survive.
Right.
And then you spend miserable life. In fact, unfortunately, India is one of those countries with the lowest happiness index, because we are all constantly making career choices to make ourselves miserable. For safety, I will get into a job which I will hate and I will not be good at, so I will hate it even more. If you're in a job that you're not good at and you're not, you're not talented for, you will hate it, and hence your life will be miserable, and you will become worse at your job because you hate it. So pick a career basis your own interest, your own talent, and your own experiences, and stop looking at what other people have done. I also find this very strange, that because I'm an IS officer, so you decide to become one. Why? Are you me? Have you lived my life? Do you have my talents? Do you have my interests? Why should you decide to become an IS officer just because I decided? Do it because that's what you are going to be good at. Don't do it because I decided it. You and I are not the same people. And I find that very, very, a bad way of looking at life. That someone else did it, so I should be doing that same thing. No. That way I would have done so many other things. But I didn't. And by the way, I never knew any IS officers all my life. So I didn't decide this career because someone else was doing it. I decided this because I realized that I was actually going to be good at it and I would actually enjoy it. And but don't get inspired by someone to follow their career path. Get inspired by someone to follow your own career path. See it as that they did something in what they like to do, so I should do something in what I like to do, right? Take those kind of learnings, not copy them and try to become them. You cannot become me and become better than me at being me, right? So how can you become better than me at being me? So don't try to be me. Be yourself. And trust me on this, nobody in the world can be better than being you, than you. So, and you can only be the best at being you. So just do that. Be yourself. Don't follow someone else or copy someone else. You can follow people, but don't copy someone else, right? Don't try to be, copy pasting someone else's choices into yours when you are not the same people.
Okay, I think there is, time for one last question, and I also quite agree with what you're saying, though it's not something that everybody seems to be agreeing with. Is that most of us pursue happiness, and the more you pursue something, the further it gets away from you. So
actually, no, I disagree. Most people do not pursue happiness. Most people pursue their wants and desires. They don't pursue happiness.
Fair enough. It's debatable, but yeah, I'll give you the last word on that.
Because Indians are the one people who never think in terms of what will make me happy. We think we pursue money, we pursue love, we pursue fame, we pursue making our parents happy. We don't pursue our personal happiness.
No,
I've
no,
never found
that I
people.
agree with. I think our personal happiness is tied up with a lot of the happiness
We
of
always,
all the
yeah,
others. That's something
yeah.
that I completely agree. But what I meant was broadly that, trying to put it into that
No, people
framework.
think that the money is going to make them happy,
Yeah, correct.
right? You
That's
don't
what
actually know
yeah,
what will make
true.
you happy.
That's what I meant when
Yeah.
I think there's time for one last question. I also wanted to talk to you about political correctness. I don't know if it's there's time for that on all of these new nomenclature on
Uh,
specially abled and all of that as well. And I
I
think there's
know, right?
also
I can quickly answer that, by the way.
yeah.
I don't have a problem with people using a person with disability. It's not disabled person, it's person with disability, because you do have a disability. Why should that be something negative? Everybody has a disability. Yours is in a field where most people don't have it. And so what? Why should that be something negative? Why should you be ashamed of it? Why should the world see it as a problem? It's not. It's just who you are. And but being called that makes other people realize that they need to make some accommodations for you in some field, and that is something that we genuinely need. And I don't think there's a problem with that. Why should I be ashamed of my disability and asking for help if I have it? So that's my personal take on it.
Fair enough. I think that's a quick answer to that political correctness. But I think there's one question on what the government is doing to address issues in the rural areas. I think that will be the last one right now before I hand it over.
Actually, it depends on what state you're in, because every state government has a different policy and different proposals and plans and things. So I don't know if your state government. I don't know which state you're from and what state.
Yeah, we are
What
looking
your
at
state government
we are in
is doing.
Karnataka.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what Karnataka state is doing. I'm based out of Delhi, so I know what I was doing. I don't know what Karnataka government is doing. But central government point of view is that there are scholarship schemes. There are reservations. Obviously, that's a big one. But there are obviously free healthcare and ADEP scheme, which helps you get appliances. Then I think there are helplines and UDID card. Please get it. Please get it, because that really will solve a lot of your problems. And I don't know, besides that, if central government, they have the Accessible India campaign, which is about making all buildings and all infrastructure accessible. But if you have a specific arena, then maybe I can solve that. But there are employment schemes, there are employment loan schemes. There's a whole organization, NHFDC, which does that, National Handicap Finance Development Corporation. So there are a lot of those. There's also a new university for people with disabilities that has come up in Assam. So I'm not sure what scheme you want to be talking about, but there's education, there's health, there's employment. So what other sector are you looking at?
I think this is a question at which we can probably make a segue. I will now hand it over to Dr. M.A. Balasubramania, Advisor, Community Processes and Comprehensive Primary Health Care in National Health Systems Resource Center, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, and also founder member of SPY, for his concluding remarks and also share his thoughts today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ira Singhal. In fact, it was a life lesson for all of us. In fact, I'm just reminded about Mahatma Gandhi's words, "My life is my message." And I think your complete conversation actually mirrored that information or image all along. And what a great lesson it was for the last 45 minutes. Not just for people who had so-called bracketed under the condition of people with disability, but so-called others who had abilities with their inherent disabilities. And I'm sure this was a great lesson for an individual and a family, a professional tip for many people who want to pursue their careers, society at large to look at how they could make a difference and how they should be looking at, not just in a sympathetic and empathetic way, but act on par. I think that brings a sea change from sympathy, empathy to act on par, would actually make one say that this is where the doors are to be and not actually being prodded along with something more. In this context, I thought it was a very energetic session. In fact, personally, I enjoyed a lot and made a lot of sense in everything that you told, both as a management professional and more important as a humane individual. And the journey was also very, very reminding me of many of the Swami Vivekananda's thoughts himself. In fact, people ridicule, then they resist, then they finally accept. And I think this journey of yours has actually clearly brought out. And a message that you actually echoed very, very critically, as I thought, was the famous American theologist Reinhold Niebuhr's comment, saying that God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, but the courage to change what I can and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think this is what you actually pursued all your career, is what I started reflecting upon. The serenity prayer was actually on your lips and mind all the time. And I think that's what has put you onto that pedestal. In fact, I also thought that it was a great opportunity to understand for all of us, saying that how we make our choices, how we pursue our own careers, and more important, I think the statement that you made, we don't pursue happiness, but actually we only pursue wants and desires, is a very powerful thought, which I think most of us as Indians, we need to reflect upon. And I'm sure these doors are going to open up once each of us start looking at happiness in a very different context and not just wants and desires in particular. And one thing that I also echoed when you actually started talking about, saying that don't do what I'm doing. I never had an IAS officer in my career lifetime, but I still wanted to be an IAS officer. I think I was again reminded of Swami Vivekananda's famous words: talk to yourself once in a day, otherwise you may miss meeting an intelligent person in this world. And I thought each of us have to do this, what you did and what you have been doing all the day. And as you clearly said, that no IAS officer has got a typical day, and the typical day is an atypical day. So in that context, it's very vibrant and dynamic way that we are trying to look at. And we sincerely look forward to more such interactions with you. I had one issue of inclusivity that I would like to echo from this one. I completely appreciate your point when you look at action on par. I also want to look at being a bureaucrat, look at some systemic changes that can actually be looked at, whether the health sector getting involved in the context of disability and truly understanding disability is not just creating a ramp on the hospital. Okay, something much deeper for all of us to understand and start becoming inclusive. Second, when you're talking about development, when you're talking about inclusive development, the very fact of development within this framework of the laws of this country says that if you want to work with people with disability, you need to have written down the word disability in your objective of the mission. Okay, very strange. Very strange.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'll check that.
It sounds so strange when you're talking about people developing human capital and social capital and looking at development in its larger context of sustainability. And we talk about sustainable development goal, which is inclusive and equitable. And we suddenly say that if you are a development organization, but you don't have the word disability in you, we can't be supported by the government. Sounds very, I would say for me, very strange. Okay, though it borders around stupidity at some point of time. Somebody who actually brought this one there. I'm sure these are arenas that people like you could make a big, big difference to look at the way India perceives things and the way India could act on. So we look forward to more interactions with you. And thank you very much for joining us and making our life valuable in the last 1 hour to understand ourselves and to reflect upon your journey for ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'll just add to the thing that you said. Actually, about people with disabilities. One of the things that we didn't really discuss what work I was doing in the sector, but one of the things that I did was I set up these centers in each district. They're still in the process, but the thing that I was planning to do there was give parents counseling the minute they have a child with disability and connect them to the local hospitals. So once the doctors know that a child with disability has been born, and with all the ASHAs and ANMs, so the minute a child with disability is recognized in the family, I also, by the way, trained all my ashas and ANMs on recognizing children with disabilities. So, and the idea was to bring the parents there and help parents through the process by giving them counseling on how to behave, what are the medical interventions, what are the social interventions that they need, the conversations to have with the child, the infrastructure support, or just making sure that the child grows up normal, having support groups of parents. This was my wider idea. I got moved from the department so that I didn't get to see it come on ground, but it's there in the papers and files, and hopefully it'll be done soon. Because I do think that disability is more about how you think of a person rather than what the person is really about. It's mental. So disability is the way you mentally think of a person, and it comes from the family. The minute the family starts thinking the child is disabled, the child becomes disabled. So the minute the parents start thinking there's nothing wrong with my child, the world will do that. So I thought the change needs to start at the first minute when a parent and we don't recognize that it's a trauma for the parent to find out I have a child with disability. As a parent, when you realize that your child is disabled, that's not something you've been prepared for. Nobody has through your life prepared you that you will have a child like this, so this is how you will bring them up. In fact, the people who are prepared to have a child with disability, their children, when they get a disability, grow up very normal. Because the parent is prepared, so the parent makes sure the child does not become different. So I think that's the one thing that we need to do, is give parents trauma counseling. Because see, you've always thought of having kids, you have 9 months, you've prepared for a child, you're planning this and that, and the child will grow up and will achieve this and that, and suddenly you find out your child will not do those things, and your child will have a issue that will be with them for all their lives. It's a big mental trauma, and unfortunately we're not addressing that, and that's where the whole disability thing goes for a toss. So the minute we start addressing that the child, the parents get that trauma counseling. Like you get into an accident, you have PTSD, right? And we recognize that, and we have a trauma counseling. But we're not recognizing that having a child with disability is also a trauma. It's in fact one of the biggest traumas, because all your life, especially in a country like yours, you plan for your kids. I will do this with my kids, and your whole marriage is about having kids. So when that happens, you have a child with disability, it suddenly hits you and you don't know what you're supposed to do in that situation. So I think that trauma counseling is something that needed to be done. And that's one of the things that I thought about.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. In fact, I saw through your career and said that you have held an important approach as a district collector. You are operational person of everything. But many of your other responsibilities are mostly on the social sector, which you are making it more sensitive and reflective at many instances of time. And of course, it has to lead into transformation. I would urge you that you I would also wish that you get an opportunity to work in so-called non-humane sectors like industries, economics, finance, okay, where people very rarely have the social sensitivity and empathy to look at that. In fact, those are arenas which really requires the heart to flow in. Apart from this one, living by the same Vivekananda's rule, the heart should be the first one to kick in, then the head should rule and the hand should deliver. And I think your journey should take us there, and probably could be an icon for all the administrative service officers in this country.
Thank you, Dr. MAB, and I also want to take this opportunity to thank Ira Singhal. This has been one of the best conversations that I've had, at least, and I think that's something that all the participants here also would echo in terms of how it is. This has been a most inspiring discussion that we've had. I want to thank you on behalf of the Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement, as well as the lead and the CCSD program, for having taken time out to share your thoughts with us. We look forward to more such interactions. And I also want to thank everyone who's come in today and participated. And we will continue to bring you such conversations. And it typically happens on a Saturday, except this time, and third Saturday of every month. So keep coming. And thank you very much, and all of you have a great evening. Thank you, and bye-bye. Thank you, Ira, once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Look forward to meeting you in person.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.